Patagonia, 69 million years before the present. In this late stage of the Mesozoic era, the southern landmass serves as a biological laboratory for evolutionary giants. The fragmentation of the Gondwana supercontinent has created a unique ecological isolation, fostering the rise of specialized lineages that differ fundamentally from the faunas of the northern hemisphere. This is obsidian, a mature male Carnotaurus sastri. Within this specific geological basin, defined by basaltic ridges, volcanic ash deposits, and ancient riverbeds, he remains the absolute sovereign. His existence is a testament to specialized predatory engineering, featuring a skull designed for rapid, snapping bites and a muscular frame built for explosive speed. Obsidian possesses a distinct skeletal morphology, characterized by deep, powerful hind limbs and vestigial forelimbs that represent the extreme end of abelisaurid evolution. Yet despite such total authority and the absence of rivals, he lives in a state of isolated vigilance. The silence of the morning is not a sign of peace, but a void waiting to be filled by the next biological event. A mosasaur, a massive abyss titan from the expanding Atlantic Seaway, has drifted past the brackish boundary into the freshwater realm of obsidian. These marine incursions are rare, triggered by rising tides or seismic shifts that bridge the gap between salt and silt. The early stillness is about to shatter. Obsidian does not engage this aquatic interloper for sustenance. The risk of injury from such a powerful jaw is too great for a meal. Instead, he strikes for status and territorial integrity. He maneuvers to hit the blind side of the semi-submerged reptile, delivering a precise impact with his keratin-covered brow horns. The intent is obvious to any observer of nature. The predator demands a retreat to the depths. This ground is under his jurisdiction. The mosasaur, out of its element and recognizing the disadvantage of the shallow water, yields to the pressure and submerges. This is Nova. Located several kilometers away, she emits a potent pheromone, a quiet and covert chemical signal cast into space. This is not a sound, but a molecular code meant for long-range detection, moved by the rising heat waves radiating from the sun-baked plains of the interior. It is a biological beacon intended to find a mate in a sparsely populated world. But her alert, instead of attracting a peer, only summoned shadows. Mapes, the largest of the megaraptorids, are seeking to seize the lands of Nova. These lethal predators, nearly the scale of a Tyrannosaurus, utilize their massive hand claws as primary hunting tools. They represent the new order of southern carnivores, ready to displace any occupant of this fertile territory. Nova must remain motionless, relying on her camouflage to avoid the detection of these wandering killers. Returning to the center of Obsidian's basin, the proportion of biology can be tricky for the uninitiated eye. This is a cluster of Titanomachia jimenez, a genus of titanosaurian sauropods that defies the standard expectation of size. For a titanosaur, they are notably small, possessing about the bulk of a modern mammoth. Their evolution was dictated by the specific resources of this valley, where smaller size allowed for greater maneuverability and lower caloric requirements. A coelacanth watches them from the dense ferns. A lesser sibling to the king of the valley, this abelisaurid is a perimeter stalker. While coelacanths possess the predatory flow of their larger kin, they lack the skeletal weight required to confront the Titanomachia group in the open plains. To the coelacanth, these herbivores are a shifting fortress of sinew and frame. A coelacanth might envision a successful kill, but the reality of those stomping feet keeps him at a distance.
Meanwhile, Obsidian has detected a scent. It is faint, ancient, and visceral, cutting through the smell of damp earth and decaying vegetation. It is the mating alert from Nova. To answer this biological imperative, he must abandon the comfort of his familiar basin, leaving behind the territory he has defended for seasons. He must trade immediate safety for the possibility of a future. The path ahead is treacherous, crossing through the domains of other apex killers and across geographical barriers that test his endurance. Obsidian begins his march, his powerful leg muscles providing the mechanical efficiency needed for long-distance travel. Aerotitan, lord of the South American firmament, circles high above. Gliding from the Patagonian thermals on a wingspan exceeding 9 meters, Aerotitan hits the Earth with a softness that masks its massive frame. As its wings shift into angular and thin limbs for terrestrial movement, its neck rises like a rigid pylon to a striking height of 3 meters. This action exposes a creature of hollow elegance, its body draped in glowing pycnofibers for thermal regulation. Within those bones sits a honeycomb of air, a pneumatic design that grants him passage through the woods like a vivid prism. He is poised at the junction between delicate skeletal beauty and fatal hunting power, capable of snatching small vertebrates with a beak shaped like a spear. Aerotitan is a scavenger and a predator, opportunistic in the extreme. Beyond the basin, the world is foreign, shielded, and increasingly arid. Saltosaurus loricatus, survivors of a localized drought, march across the horizon. At 12 meters in length, consisting of nearly 40 feet of stubborn muscle and heavy bone-studded chests, they are the tanks of the Cretaceous. They cannot help but trigger the focus of Obsidian as he passes. Facing a barricade of osteoderms and conical spikes, Obsidian wisely moves ahead without engaging. He is a sprinter, not a siege engine, and a confrontation with a Saltosaurus would only result in broken bones. The defensive evolution of these sauropods has made them nearly immune to the attacks of all but the largest predators. A young Austroraptor kabazai glides through the reeds like a feathered ghost of its paravian roots. Its short-winged limbs are a striking relic of its bird-like ancestors, offering vital poise on the sliding, muddy river edge. Here, the standard sickle-shaped tools of the raptor family were traded by evolution for a more subtle accuracy. A thin, elongated snout and grooved conical fangs have been shaped into a lethal device to pierce the silver prey of the stream. This is a specialist of the shallows, a dinosaur that has mastered the art of fishing in a world of giants. The Austroraptor is an example of niche partitioning, thriving where larger carnivores cannot effectively hunt. Treading through the rising tides of a coastal river, Obsidian relies on his complex olfactory array. His sharp sense of smell is driven by large, specialized bulbs inside the skull, occupying a significant portion of his brain volume. He is able to find chemical traces even through the heavy river mist and the competing scents of a blooming forest. While climbing a stony and slick slope toward a high crest, his drive is fueled by the caudofemoralis muscle. This massive engine links his tail to his thighs, offering the burst force and poise needed to pilot his heavy body through the sheer vertical world. However, upon hitting the peak, the physics of water takes command of the environment. The violent spray at the fall's edge forms a sensory wall, a scent masking force that disrupts the predator's primary navigation system. It fractures the thin particles he had been tracking, scattering the pheromones of Nova into the wind. In this zone of sonic chaos and blinding steam, the primary tool of Obsidian is voided. Noticing that the path was erased by the flow, he must yield to the terrain, tracing back his steps to find the vanished route. He scans the mud for a trace, a track, or a snapped limb. The clues are thin in this rocky corridor. Fatigue finally takes him at the edge of a drop. Even the most powerful giants must envision a moment of rest before the hunt continues. The day brings the titans of the north. Dreadnoughtus shrani, those who fear nothing, emerge from the tree line. They are icons of biology, walking cathedrals of skin and frame that move with the persistence of a slow-moving ice sheet. The Dreadnoughtus are returning from their nesting grounds, but they are not alone in their transit. A mipe lurks from the stones, watching the rear of the column. Hunger causes recklessness in the predator, but the sauropods are too vast. The hunter is ignored like a minor parasite, left behind in the dust of their passage. The great group moves with a singular purpose. In the core of the line, the infants are kept safe by a fence of wide limbs and thundering steps. They have outlived the first test of their lives. The atmosphere starts to shift as Obsidian approaches the coast. The smell of salt and dried dirt yields to something crisp, thick, and rich. The sky opens up, revealing a hidden valley. At last, the behemoths reach the water they sought, the center of an oasis. A rarity in the south of America, the Parenchylosaurus is a creature of architecture irregular and defiance silent. It is a mobile plate, a unique mark in the Patagonian wild, featuring a tail weapon unlike any other ankylosaur. Obsidian and the shielded scout meet at a watering hole. They are at a rare crossing of the apex tracker and the living stone. There is a second of shared focus while they judge the presence of each other. Finding no immediate risk, they proceed cautiously on their separate paths into the growing dark of the forest. The sky of Obsidian is soon passed by the Dreadnoughtus, moving from their cyclic nesting spots in the volcanic west near the rising mountains. For eons, the mineral-rich dust of the young Andes fed their eggs, providing the calcium necessary for such rapid growth. The giants seek the stream, eager to drown the biting flies in the silt and mud. To keep such a massive frame, they lack the time for chewing or complex digestion in the mouth. Using peg-like teeth to strip entire limbs of their leaves, they consume the woods in a green flood. This vegetation is meant for a massive fermenting gut that acts as a biological forge, extracting every calorie through bacterial action. Obsidian looks up with respect, mesmerized by these saurian giants that dwarf even his impressive stature. For a short pulse, hunter and prey share a look of mutual wonder. The cruelty of their world is paused by the sheer scale of existence. Obsidian moves on, driven by a clock he cannot see. Seconds are vital. In the core of the Patagonian night, a storm turns the forest into a tool of confusion. The basin he has entered is no longer a home, but a world of sharp shadows and sudden blinding light. Amid the fierce strobe of lightning bolts, Obsidian feels a risk that hides from his sight. It is a pulse in the air, a scent of the wood's floor pulled to the high stones. He is being hunted by a ghost that mimics the very world around him. A snare has been laid by a competitor, a rival Carnotaurus, or perhaps a mipe lurking in the dark. Obsidian feels the mipe's proximity nearby, sensing the vibration of a heavy footfall. He finds the scent of a second mipe, realizing he is being flanked. Now he must move with care, utilizing the terrain to break their line of sight.
Obsidian finds refuge in the cold hold of a basalt wall. There, the stone grants him a tactical wall and a spot to rest his tired head. Outside, a stream flows dark, a murky vein that splits the land. In its flow, a group of Gonkokan nanoi, duck-billed herbivores of the south, shifts with a careful shared flow. They are gathering the high-energy flora of the bank, unaware of the drama in the shadows. The mipe yerks nearby, a shadow of the lower flows, measuring the gap to the group. A lone Gonkokan at the edge of safety is the mark. The hunter closes the gap, using the very stream to hide its path and mask its scent. In a sudden burst of spray and power, the mipe strikes, claiming its prize in the dark. Meanwhile, the long path of Obsidian nears its stop. While ascending toward the basalt fort, a spectral presence fills the air. It is a complex chemical map of pheromones and scent signs moved by the evening air. It tells his primal mind that he is no longer the sole member of his race in this wasteland. For Obsidian, this is more than a scent, it is a summons. And there, framed by the dark rock and the moonlight, is Nova. Neither has ever seen another of their kind in this region. They meet with a quiet and rare doubt, but the biological link is instant. In the shade of the stone, two lonely rulers find a direct primal bond that ensures the survival of their lineage. But the calm of the fort is weak. From the riverbank below, the quiet is broken by a fresh scent that cuts the accord. Rot, silt, and raw malice fill the air. The Mipe has arrived, followed by its pack. It comes not for a queen, but to seize the home and the territory. The fight for the Basalt fort has started. Nova finds herself trapped and outnumbered against the Megaraptors, but the arrival of Obsidian scatters the initial assault. The fight spills into the stream, a mess of stones and freezing spray. Against the jagged claws of the Mipe, Obsidian shows the true genius of his design, depth vision. With eyes set for three-dimensional sight, he interprets the risky ground with the accuracy of a mapper, finding grip where his rival only slides. The Carnotaurus is a master of force and leverage. He uses his peak power to pin the intruder and stay clear of the reaching hooks. He slams the Mipe against the rocks, and in a flash of dominance, the intruder retreats into the night. The shadows flee as the sun begins to rise. The basin calls the survivors back home. High above, in the safety among the stones of the fort, a new cycle begins as eggs break their shells. The play of the Cretaceous continues. The cast shifts, but the trial of life goes on. The geological record of this specific Patagonian sector indicates a period of intense tectonic transition. During the Maastrichtian Age, approximately 70 to 66 million years before the current era, the South American tectonic plate experienced significant subduction events along its western margin. This resulted in the episodic uplift of the Proto-Andes, a mountain range that was then in its infancy. For Obsidian and Nova, this geological activity had immediate biological consequences. The volcanic ash, rich in phosphates and minerals, acted as a primary fertilizer for the vast conifer forests and ginkgo groves that dominated the landscape. This high primary productivity supported the massive caloric requirements of titanosaurian giants like Dreadnoughtus. Without this volcanic cycle, the ecosystem would collapse into sterility. The soil composition, primarily composed of sandstone and tufaceous siltstone, preserves the footprints of these giants, allowing modern paleontology to reconstruct their migratory patterns. The climate was humid and subtropical, with distinct seasonal variations that dictated the reproductive cycles of abelisaurids. Obsidian's migration was timed precisely with the end of the rainy season, when the river levels dropped and the pheromones of Nova could travel more effectively across the desiccated plains.
The skeletal architecture of Carnotaurus sastrae is an outlier in the theropod family. While northern predators like Tyrannosaurus rex evolved toward massive bite forces and bone-crushing jaws, Obsidian's lineage took a different path. The skull of Obsidian is significantly shorter and taller, a condition known as brachycephaly. This allows for a wider gape and a faster snap, ideal for wounding large prey rather than crushing it. The cervical vertebrae are exceptionally strong, supporting the impact of the brow horns during intraspecific combat or territorial defense. The most striking feature, however, is the caudofemoralis muscle. In Obsidian, this muscle is massive, occupying the majority of the proximal tail. It attaches directly to the femur, functioning as a primary retractor that drives the leg backward with immense force. This anatomical specialization makes Obsidian a dedicated sprinter, capable of reaching speeds estimated at 50 kilometers per hour. This speed is necessary to navigate a landscape where prey is mobile and water sources are far apart. The unstoppable movement of a Dreadnoughtus herd is not a simple walk. It is a logistical operation of biological proportions. An adult Dreadnoughtus consumes nearly 400 kilograms of vegetation daily. In a herd of 20 individuals, the pressure on the local flora is catastrophic. They move constantly to avoid total deforestation. Their digestive tract, a biological fermentation chamber reaching 30 meters in length, utilizes gastroliths, stomach stones, to grind fibrous plant material. This process generates significant internal heat, a form of gigantothermy that allows these animals to maintain a stable temperature despite their cold-blooded ancestry. For the hatchlings following the herd, survival depends on staying within the safe zone created by the massive legs of the adults. Any infant that wanders outside this perimeter is immediately targeted by opportunists like colican or young mipes. The survival rate of these titans in their first year is less than 5%, a statistic that necessitates the production of dozens of eggs per nesting cycle. The mipes represent a shift in the predatory hierarchy of the South. Unlike the solitary and territorially fixed abelisaurids, megaraptors often exhibit cooperative hunting behaviors or at least aggregate around large food sources. The social structure of a mipe pack is loose, based on size and aggression. The individual hunting obsidian and nova is a prime male, utilizing its elongated snout and sensory pits to track movement in low-light conditions. The primary weapon of the mipe is the enlarged ungual of the first digit on the hand. This claw, reaching lengths of 40 centimeters, is designed to pierce the hide of thick-skinned dinosaurs and sever vital arteries. The presence of two mipes at the Basalt fort suggests a coordinated attempt to drive the Carnotaurus pair away from a strategic viewpoint and nesting site. Their failure against obsidian highlights the defensive advantage of the Carnotaurus's binocular vision and superior lateral stability. Aerotitan belongs to the Azhdarchidae family, a group of pterosaurs known for their massive size and terrestrial hunting habits. The aerodynamics of such a large creature are complex. To take off, Aerotitan uses a quadrupedal launch, using its powerful arm muscles to vault into the air. Once airborne, it relies on thermal soaring, utilizing its broad wings to catch rising columns of warm air. On the ground, its movements are surprisingly efficient. It stalks the undergrowth with a staccato gait, its long neck allowing it to see over low vegetation. Its diet consists of small dinosaurs, mammals, and carrion. The relationship between Aerotitan and the large theropods is one of mutual observation. Aerotitan follows obsidian, knowing that the predator's movements will eventually lead to a kill or a carcass. It is a biological satellite, providing a sky-eye view of the Patagonian basin.
The flora of the late Cretaceous Patagonia was a mix of ancient lineages and emerging new orders. While the landscape was dominated by conifers like Araucaria, the ancestors of the monkey puzzle tree, flowering plants or angiosperms were beginning to spread. These early flowers provided new food sources for smaller herbivores and insects, which in turn supported the base of the food web. The ferns that carpeted the forest floor were resilient to the heavy footsteps of the sauropods, capable of rapid regrowth. The cycle of fire and renewal was common, with lightning-induced forest fires clearing old growth and allowing for the germination of fire-adapted seeds. Obsidian's path through the burned sectors of the forest was easier, as the lack of dense undergrowth allowed for faster movement and better visibility. The climate of 69 million years ago was experiencing a long-term cooling trend, yet it remained significantly warmer than the modern era. High levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide, fueled by volcanic activity, created a greenhouse effect. This resulted in a lack of polar ice caps and higher sea levels. For the inhabitants of Patagonia, this meant that the ocean was never far away. The encroachment of the mosasaur into the river system was a symptom of these high sea levels. The seasonal rains were intense, leading to flash floods that could bury entire herds of dinosaurs in silt, creating the bone beds that paleontologists study today. Obsidian's awareness of the weather, His ability to sense the drop in barometric pressure before a storm was a vital survival trait. The nesting site at the Basalt fort was chosen for its thermal properties. The dark stone absorbed heat during the day and released it slowly at night, providing a stable incubation temperature for the eggs of nova. Unlike some northern dinosaurs that exhibited parental care, the Carnotaurus strategy was likely one of protect and release. Once the eggs hatched, the young were precocial, capable of movement and hunting small insects almost immediately. The initial bond between obsidian and nova was strictly for the duration of the reproductive cycle, a biological contract signed in pheromones and defended with bone and muscle. The survival of their genes depended on the integrity of the Basalt fort and their ability to repel intruders like the mipes. The Abelisaurids were an evolutionary success story in the southern hemisphere, filling the niches left vacant by the absence of other theropod groups. Their specialized anatomy, though seemingly strange, was perfectly adapted to the open environments of the south. However, the clock was ticking. The end of the Cretaceous was approaching, and the environmental changes that would follow would test the limits of even the most specialized giants. Obsidian and nova represent the pinnacle of their line, a final flourish of dinosaurian dominance before the changing world demanded a new type of survivor. Their struggle at the Basalt fort is a microcosm of the larger struggle for existence that defines the history of life on Earth. As the sun rises over the Patagonian horizon, the echoes of the night's conflict fade. The mipes have moved on to easier targets, and the Dreadnoughtus herd has crossed the river into new feeding grounds. Obsidian and nova remain at the fort, their presence a deterrent to any who would challenge their claim. The hatchlings, small and feathered, represent the next generation of sovereigns. The drama of the southern land is a continuous narrative, written in the strata of the earth and the behavior of its inhabitants. The actors may change, the names may be forgotten, but the fundamental laws of nature, competition, survival, and reproduction remain the same. The Cretaceous frontier remains a place of brutal beauty and biological innovation.